The hospice nurse looked at me like I was a stranger who'd wandered in off the street. "I'm sorry," she said, glancing down at a clipboard. "You're not on the approved visitor list." I was standing in the hallway outside room 214, holding a paper bag with my grandmother's lavender hand cream inside it, the same brand she'd used for as long as I could remember. I asked the nurse to check again. She checked again. My name wasn't there. 63 days. That's how long the doctors had given my 84-year-old grandmother, and I hadn't even made it past the nurse's station. My grandmother's name was Vivian. Everyone who loved her called her Nana V. She was the one who taught me to can peaches on her back porch in Prescott every August, standing over a boiling pot in 90-degree heat, because she said store-bought peaches tasted like the inside of a can and nothing else. She called me every Sunday at 6 o'clock sharp for 11 straight years, and if I missed the call once, she'd leave a voicemail that just said, "You're alive. Good. Call me back." She kept a wooden recipe box on her kitchen counter, index cards yellowed at the corners, and one of them, in her handwriting, said, "Meredith's wedding cake," in case she ever asks. I never had asked. She wrote it anyway, years and years before I'd even met anyone worth marrying, just in case. My mother, Diane, hadn't spoken to Nana V in 14 years. It started over $20,000 Nana V loaned her for a boutique that failed within a year, money Nana V never once asked to be repaid. My mother decided the silence was easier to live with than the guilt. Missing birthdays, missing holidays, missing the year Nana V had her hip replaced. So I became the one who showed up instead. I drove the 37 miles out to Prescott most Saturdays, sat with her while she did the crossword, listened to the same 3 stories about my grandfather she never got tired of telling. About a year before she got sick, I noticed a manila envelope in her nightstand drawer, the corner of it just visible under a folded quilt, with 2 letters written on the front in pencil. For M. I never opened it. It wasn't mine to open. I just knew it was there. When Nana V was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer last spring, my mother resurfaced almost overnight. She drove down from Flagstaff, moved into Nana V's guest room, and became the person the facility listed as the family contact, the one who fielded calls from the doctors and signed off on day-to-day decisions. I didn't fight her on that. Grief does strange things to people, I told myself, and I was genuinely glad someone was there full-time. I kept driving out on Saturdays anyway, the same as always, bringing the same lavender hand cream every visit. By early summer, Nana V had declined enough that she could no longer confirm much of anything herself, and the facility, like most, leaned on whoever the family had designated to keep the visitor list current. My mother updated that list. My name came off it. The 3rd Saturday after the diagnosis, a nurse named Patricia stopped me at the nurse's station before I'd even reached the hallway. That's when she told me, apologetically, that my name wasn't on the list her mother had provided. I asked her who had taken it off and when. She looked uncomfortable and glanced past me toward the end of the hall. She didn't have to answer. My mother was standing there, arms crossed, watching the whole exchange like she'd been waiting for it. "She's not really family," my mother said, loud enough that Patricia and 2 other nurses at the station clearly heard every word. "She just likes to visit when it's convenient for her." I didn't argue with her in that hallway. I've replayed that moment more times than I can count since then. All the ways I could have raised my voice, said something sharp enough to make her feel what I felt. I thought about the 11 years of Sunday phone calls, the 37 miles, the crossword puzzles. and how none of it seemed to count for anything standing in that particular hallway. Instead, I asked Patricia, calmly, how I could file a formal complaint about being turned away. She walked me to the front desk herself, glancing back once like she wanted to say something more, and thought better of it. I filled out a one-page incident form, and the coordinator emailed me a case number before I even left the parking lot. I sat in my car for a few minutes afterward, not crying exactly, just sitting there with the lavender hand cream still in the bag on the passenger seat, unopened. I didn't know yet that the case number and the timestamp attached to it would end up mattering far more than either of us realized standing in that hallway.
Once my mother had control of the visitor list, nothing about the situation was negotiable, no matter how many times I called or what I offered. I told the coordinator I'd sign anything, agree to supervised visits, whatever it took. Nothing changed. For 6 weeks, I got updates through my cousin Beth, who still had a soft spot for me and would text late at night, secondhand, and usually a day or two behind. What Nana V had eaten, whether she'd been awake, whether she'd asked for anyone. I mailed letters straight to the facility instead, addressed to Nana V by name, hoping someone on staff might read them aloud to her. I have no way of knowing, even now, whether any of them ever reached her. Nana V died on a Tuesday morning in October. I found out 4 hours later, from Beth's text message, not from my mother. I hadn't even known she'd taken a turn for the worse the night before. The funeral was 2 days after that, fast even for a family that has never been comfortable sitting with things. My mother handled every detail herself: the funeral home, the flowers, the printed program, the seating chart. When I picked mine up at the door, I noticed my name wasn't listed under Family on the back page, just under Additional Guests, between 2 neighbors I'd never met. I was seated in the 3rd row, while my mother stood at the podium and gave the eulogy, borrowing 3 lines from a card I recognized as one I'd mailed to the facility weeks earlier. Roger sat in the front pew the whole time, nodding along like a man watching something go exactly according to plan. What I didn't find out until much later was that my mother had already gone to the courthouse before the funeral, petitioning to be named personal representative of Nana V's estate, representing to the court, as far as I ever learned, that she didn't know of any other beneficiary who needed to be involved. By the time any of that reached me, my mother and Roger had already cleared out most of Nana V's house. Furniture, boxes, the recipe box off the kitchen counter, gone within 2 weeks. A neighbor told me later that my mother had said, while a moving truck idled in the driveway, that there was no point letting things sit around collecting dust while the paperwork caught up. The estate itself, once you counted the house, Nana V's remaining savings, and a $95,000 certificate of deposit she'd held untouched for over a decade, came to just over $410,000. My mother had never once, in 14 years, asked Nana V a single question about her finances. Now she was certain, without needing to ask anyone, that all of it was hers. She got the house and everything in it. I got a text message from Beth telling me it was already empty. I called my mother once, the only time I tried after the funeral. She picked up on the 2nd ring. "There's nothing there that's yours, Meredith," she said before I'd even asked the question. "I handled everything. That's not nothing." "I just wanted to see if there was anything of Nana V's I could still have," I said. "Something small. The recipe box, maybe." "It's gone," she said. "Everything's gone. You should have thought about that before you stopped coming around." I hadn't stopped coming around. She knew that. I didn't correct her. I didn't say anything else. I just hung up, and I didn't call her again. Here's the thing about my mother. She wasn't lying when she said she'd handled everything. She genuinely believed it. 14 years of silence, and she still walked into that courthouse certain that showing up at the very end was enough to make the rest of it hers. I don't think it occurred to her, even once, that her mother might have quietly decided otherwise years before either of us knew anything was wrong. Grief does something strange to memory. Small things I hadn't thought about in months started surfacing again, and every one of them looked different in this new light. The lavender hand cream? Nana V used to rub a little into my hands at the end of every visit. The same bottle, refilled from the same brand for as long as I could remember. I still have that smell memorized, down to the second. The recipe box, with the wedding cake card tucked inside it, gone now with the rest of the house. And that manila envelope in the nightstand drawer, marked for M in pencil. I hadn't let myself think about it in months, not until it was too late to simply ask what it was. 3 memories, and every one of them now felt like it belonged to someone I hadn't fully known. I kept coming back to the envelope most of all, turning it over in my mind the way I never let myself turn it over in her drawer, wondering what it would have cost either of us if I'd simply asked her while I still could have. Sometime in that 3rd week after the funeral, I stopped waiting for my mother to soften on her own. I called the hospice back and asked them to confirm, in writing, that my complaint from that Saturday in June was still on file. It was, case number and all, along with a short note confirming I'd been present and turned away that day. Then I did the one thing I probably should have done months earlier. I called an estate attorney of my own, a woman named Renata Ibarra, and told her everything, in order, from the visitor list to the courthouse filing Beth had mentioned in passing. Renata explained that my mother petitioning to be personal representative didn't settle anything on its own, and that if Nana V had left any valid will or later document naming other beneficiaries, that document would still control, regardless of what my mother believed or represented to the court. She filed a simple request with the probate court, the kind that just asks to be notified of anything further that happens in the case. It wasn't dramatic. It just meant I couldn't be quietly written out of something I might already be part of. Most of the time, Renata told me, these things sort themselves out through paperwork nobody notices happening, not through anyone announcing anything. I held on to that more than I expected to, especially on the nights it was easiest to imagine my mother had simply gotten away with something, quietly and completely, the way she seemed to get away with most things. 3 weeks passed. I went back to work, answered emails, watered the plants Nana V had given me 2 Christmases ago, the ones I still hadn't managed to kill, checking the soil most nights out of habit more than hope. I didn't call my mother once, and she didn't call me either. There was a strange relief in that silence, even though it didn't feel like anything close to peace. What I didn't know was that David Kessler, the attorney who'd handled Nana V's affairs for 20 years, had seen the new probate case appear on the county docket the same week it was filed, the way he saw every filing involving a client of his, a habit left over from decades of practice rather than anything unusual about this particular case. He pulled his own file. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, his office called and asked me to come in the following Monday. He didn't say why. I didn't ask. David Kessler's conference room was small, just a table and 4 chairs. My mother came in with Roger beside her, already talking about how there must have been some kind of mix-up. I sat across from them, alone. David opened a folder and explained, plainly, that 2 years earlier, while Nana V was still entirely healthy and entirely herself, she had come to his office alone and signed a codicil to her will. She'd asked him to keep it confidential, told to no one, until after her death, at which point he was required to bring it forward as part of any probate proceeding. Once my mother's case appeared on the docket, he had a professional obligation to do exactly that. "She came in on a Tuesday," David said. "Told my assistant she didn't need long." My mother's face didn't move at first. Roger's did. In the codicil, Nana V left a specific named the quest, the $95,000 certificate of deposit, by account number, to me. Beneath it, one line was written out in her own hand and read aloud in that room. For Meredith, who never once stopped showing up. David told us Nana V had also mentioned, that same afternoon, that she was keeping a copy for herself, somewhere only she would think to put it, tucked in with the small handful of things she still kept private, even from the people closest to her. I understood then what the manila envelope in the nightstand had been the whole time. Her own copy, kept in case anyone ever tried to say otherwise, safely apart from the version that legally mattered, the one that had been sitting in David's office the entire time, exactly where she'd left it, waiting for a day she'd apparently already known might come. David explained, evenly, that this changed things procedurally. The estate couldn't close the way my mother's petition had assumed. The $95,000 would go to me, as Nana V had specifically directed, and the rest of the estate would be handled according to whatever her full will actually provided, once everything was properly accounted for. My mother didn't argue. "She never said anything," she finally said, quietly, more to herself than to David. "In 14 years, she never once said anything about this." She just sat there for a long moment after that, working through 14 years of certainty that had never once accounted for the possibility that her mother had quietly kept thinking about me anyway, in a house I hadn't been allowed back into, for reasons that had never really been about the house at all. I didn't say a single word the entire meeting. I let David keep talking, and I let my grandmother's own handwriting do what I never could have done standing in that hallway back in June. My mother kept the house and the cars and whatever was left after the estate settled. I kept a bank account with my name newly on it, one line read aloud in a lawyer's office, and the envelope from her nightstand, which David gave back to me before I left, still sealed the way I'd always left it, out of respect for something that had never been mine to open. I bought a fresh bottle of lavender hand cream last week because I'd run out, and because for the first time in months, I wanted that smell in my house again. I don't know yet what I'll do with the money. I know exactly where the envelope is going to sit, on the shelf where I keep the few things that actually mean something, next to a photo of the two of us at my college graduation, the one where she's laughing at something off camera. I never got my grandmother back. I just got the proof that she never once forgot me. If you've ever been the one who kept showing up, even when nobody saved you a seat, I hope this story felt like it was for you. If it did, subscribe. We post new stories every week. Was there someone in your own family who showed up quietly and never got the credit for it? Tell me in the comments.